recently, you had a legendary back and forth with Rick Galser.
Oh my!
Now,
goodness.
Rick, last couple of years, Rick has been very, very opinionated on Twitter, Facebook, real critical of Al Heyman, real critical of damn near everybody, except for the dudes he's doing business with. Tell me about the back and forth.
Well, let's start from the opening of how all this started. I always like to build the foundation. There's a guy on YouTube. I'm definitely not gonna give him no clout or no promotion on your channel, on your platform, but he's just a boxing fan. He's not a content creator, just a boxing fan. He came on my platform and he was basically talking about how good Rich Glaser was and how Rich Glaser would cook me, and just out of nowhere, I didn't say nothing about the guy Rick. He just started bringing him up. I'm gonna talk to him and bring him on your channel so he can debate you and debate Rachel Donaire. And he was talking real spicy. So when you get on my platform and talk spicy, everybody knows this now. For the last 7 months I've been on YouTube, I'm not going to back down. And so I was like, okay, if you bring him on here, I will open my platform for Rick Glaser. There's no problem. He emailed me. He, meaning the guy, the fan, the boxing fan, emails me. So I said, look, I'm going to cut you out the deal. I'm going straight to Rick Glaser myself. Send me his email. I emailed Rick. Rick Glaser took a few days to email me back, but we couldn't really get to, a scheduling confirmation. So I looked up, I seen he had a website with his number on there. I called him. He kept trying to get on the platform at 11 o'clock at night. I told Rick, 11 o'clock at night on any day of the week is not good for me and my audience. So bottom line is, a few months went past, Rick finally says, I'll do it. So everybody came back. Now I get him on the platform now. Everybody that knows me know, when you in the background, backstage, and now you never been on a platform before, you got to show your face beforehand, before I let you on. You can turn your camera off once you get added to the stream. But I didn't allow Rick to do that. I let him be him. He didn't have his camera on. He gets on, I allow him to introduce himself. Gave the man the proper respect. The man has over 30 years in this business. And then all of a sudden now, he starts going back and forth about PBC and Al Heyman, his words not mine, effed up the business of boxing. And really what he was saying, and I'll translate for the people now, is Al Heyman messed up the sport of boxing and the business because Al Heyman is in the business for the fighters to make money. He's an advocate for the fighters to not be jerked out of their pay and their compensation. And because of that, Rick Glaser is offended by that. So I walked Rick Glaser into a small corner. If you go back and look, I was the prosecutor in that debate. I walked him into a corner, and this is how I did it. I said, Rick, come on, Rick. Me and you are for the fighters to get paid, right? He said, no, I'm not. Go back and look at that, man, on my channel. He says, no, I'm not. So you telling the fans in the boxing community all around the world that you're not for the fighters.
That's alarming.
You're not for the fighters getting paid.
It's alarming in the sense of there are a lot of fans that follow him and are caught up on every word. I'm pro fighter. Like I want everybody to make the money, but the fighters need to get paid first, being that they the ones that get punched upside their head.
And the thing is, and you know this, YSM, I got in the business of boxing because I am pro fighter. So when I hear anybody in the business tell me on my platform or anybody else that's a fan of boxing that fighters are getting overpaid, that struck a chord in me. That did trigger me. I'm gonna keep it all the way 100. And it triggered me because I know the business of boxing, and majority of these fighters are not even being compensated according to the average fair market value. So if I hear Rick Galser say that fighters are getting overpaid and I know that they're getting underpaid of the fair market value, my question becomes, well, what is regular pay considered to you? Let me give you an example. If a person works at McDonald's and the average minimum wage is $10 an hour, and somebody comes and say, hey, Manager Marty, this cashier is making $7 an hour and they're being overpaid, and I'm going to find out the average fair market value according to the federal law of minimum wages, $10 an hour, and you telling me that this $7 an hour cashier is getting overpaid, I got a problem with you. What is regular pay? What is regular compensation? You know, and so by him saying that, that kind of made the debate turn into more of you the ops, Rick Galser, you the ops on this platform. So now I start asking him different type of questions, and he started comparing PBC to other networks and other promotion companies by saying that one of the ways that Al Heyman effed up the business is allowing fighters to fight once a year, like their champions fight once a year. But I backed him in the corner by saying, hold up, if you go back and look at what Top Rank did, even with Terrence Crawford, even after he fought Mean Machine in 2019, Terrence Crawford fought once a year too. Mean Machine, 2019. Right after that, a year later, he fights Kell Brook. Right after that, a year later, he fights Sean Porter. And then a year after that on BLK Prime, he fought David Ebenezer. So what's wrong with Crawford fighting once a year to do his mandatory challenge? According to the WBO rules and regulations, he's supposed to fight once every 9 months to defend his title. So world champions don't have to fight 3 times, 4 times a year. And Rick Galser knows that. But the thing is that the reason why Rick Galser tucked his tail between his legs and he ran, is because he knew where I was going with that. My setup was that language in the contract, that standard all around this business has to change. I'll give you an example. And I'm saying this to protect the integrity of the business, right? When you look at these up-and-coming fighters, it started at the local level and work its way up. When you look at these fighters, they're getting paid, but guess what happens? When they get locked into a 3-year contract, their compensation stays the same. But guess what happens to the economic system? It continues to evolve. Inflation occurs. So if a fighter's only making a certain amount of dollars, he or she is stuck at that rate of compensation for the next 2 to 3 years that they're locked in this contract, even though the price of eggs, the price of fuel, the price of food is increasing, the price of bacon is increasing, the electric bill is increasing. And we have a problem when it comes to the language. And that's why manager Marty got in this business, for them to revise that and modify that so that the fans can understand that these fighters most of them have day jobs at the end of the day. They are professional fighters, and some of these fighters that you see on your local TV screens are still working a 9 to 5, and we got to change that.
Shit, some of the fighters that you see on Showtime and Showtime ESPN are working 9 to 5.
Working 9 to 5. You see them on these big major networks. We got to understand as a business, we got to change that language, because most of these fighters don't have representation. And then manager Marty walk in the room, and then everything changed. So Rick Galser did trigger me when he said he's not for the fighters. And on top of that, if you go back and listen to his previous interviews that he did on somebody else's platform, he don't even respect women's boxing.
How would you describe Rick Galser? He's not a manager. He's not necessarily an advisor. What is he in boxing?
Rick Galser is a matchmaker. Okay, all he's known for, you ask anybody in the business of boxing that has at least 10, 15, 20, or 30 years in this business, all he is famous for is digging up old fighters from the grave and basically, like he said on my platform, nobodies. He considered fighters nobodies. He's the guy who the promoter call and say, hey, listen, I got $30,000 for a person that's more of a dead weight fighter, or tomato can, as somebody would say, a nobody, like he says, fish him to me. And then I'm going to pay him $30,000 to fight one of my guys. And what Rick Galser would do is he'll call that fighter on the phone, not tell him that the promoter offered $30,000, but yet he'll go in there and say, look, the promoter offered me $15,000 for you. And then the fighter is gung-ho, and he'll say, okay, sign me up. But what happens is when the promoter cut the check, Rick Galser take the $15,000 from the $30,000 off the top. Then he turn around and go to the fighter and say, don't forget, you still owe me 20 to 30% because I'm the one that brokered the deal for you out of the $15,000. And you can ask anybody in the business of boxing and they'll confirm that.
Wow.
And I want to say this too, since you brought up other boxing fans. There were content creators. There's not just boxing fans, YSM, that believe and hang on every word that he says. There are content creators right now that hang on every word that Rick Galser been saying year after year, even before I've been on YouTube. And most of them start tap dancing for this man as soon as the debate went off, went on their own platform, put me in memes, thumbnails, all kind of subliminals they make in their channels all over me because they cool with Rick Galser. And they don't know the business of boxing. But if you ask them about manager Marty, they know I'm solid.